This is your chance to experience the NFL like never before. The Irish NFL Show is touching down stateside, and we want you on the team. Explore iconic football towns: Chicago, Green Bay, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and make memories with fellow Irish NFL fans on the trip of a lifetime. We've partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel, a trusted travel partner with over 30 years' experience. We'll look after everything: flights, accommodation, transfers, match tickets, social events, and everything in between. An unforgettable experience. Picture yourself in the stands at Soldier Field, Lambeau, or MetLife, roaring on your team. Register your interest today at irishnflshow.com/tours. Don't just watch the game, live it. Welcome to the Irish NFL Show, brought to you by Quimbet. Wow, whatever the pain that voiceover guy, I tell you, it's not enough. I'd buy anything from that guy. What a warm-throated and I bet very handsome individual he is in real life as well. Yeah, we have big plans for 2026. That's our big reveal. We are going stateside and we're bringing a crew with us. And by crew, we mean you. So the Irish NFL Show is partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel. We're going to be running a package trip during the regular season next year. We're going to time it so that we line up a Thursday night football game and a Sunday game in close proximity to one another. So say, for example, we go to the Link to go and see the Eagles on a Thursday, go and see the Giants on a Sunday in New York. That just off the top of my head, it probably won't be that. We might actually get a good team in on Sunday. It could work out anyway. Who knows? Those dates, times, and locations have to be confirmed when the schedule drops next May. In the meantime, you can get more details and register your interest at irishnflshow.com/tours. All will be revealed next May when we get that schedule drop and we can start planning that trip of a lifetime in earnest. Right, to the week 14 action we go. Brian O'Leary and Shane Brennan with me, Conor Brophy, this evening on our live show as we recap that action. And lads, it absolutely lived up to expectations. In fact, dare I say it even exceeded expectations. We had 3 instant classics over the weekend. We had Chiefs Texans, we had Bears Packers at Lambeau, which we will get to in the second segment. And, you know, spoiler alert, I will not be taking the shirt off because the Bears did not get over the line, but we shall talk about that in just a little bit. We also had Bengals Bills, but we thought we'd gather together some of the action in our first segment, which we've loosely entitled Cooked or Cooking. Shane, the Chiefs starting to look like they might indeed be cooked, and the Texans very much cooking.
Very much so. This is when I was thinking of the whole sort of like cooking thing, I was like, this is the game where we finally know where both of these teams rank in terms of what they are trying to achieve this year. Let's start off with the Chiefs, I think, are the biggest storyline, because let's be fair about this. Where I think we're coming to a situation now where we're probably not going to be talking about the Chiefs much longer now for the rest of the season. I know there's still a world where they win out the rest of their 4 games, and O'Brien was making the point off air, and maybe he's making it on air in his reaction last night, that they still have maybe an easier schedule. Although the Broncos on Christmas Day, I wouldn't say is an easy game.
Wait till we're left with Broncos Jags in the championship game, and then you send an AFC team to the Super Bowl that gets absolutely dismantled by the Eagles, and it won't be so funny then. We'd be crying out for the Chiefs at that point.
Well, actually, if you're going to lock on something now, the fact I'm looking at this AFC.
You know what? You notice I deliberately excluded your Patriots from the championship game there just to troll you.
Yeah, we'll win it next year. It's grand. But if you actually look at that AFC rankings, you're like you look at and think that the teams in the NFC would wipe the floor with just about any of them. But anyway, let's get back to the Chiefs at the moment, because I think we have to go back to the genesis of what is happening with Kansas City, and that is just a complete shattering of their bulletproof facade. And we saw that in a lot of key areas of the game last night. Firstly, Patrick Mahomes isn't completing passes. And when he is, it's mistakes. I think the line coming from Chris Collinsworth last night is that the season is being defined by miscues from the stars. And that's what we got. I mean, Travis Kelce, he was surrounded by 3 Houston defenders. Houston defense played very well last night. He lets the ball slip at a key moment. It's Mahomes not being able to complete passes. Andy Reid making a bad play call on 4th and 1 on their own 35-yard line when it's 10-all. Lets the ball go turnover and downs.
Yeah, let us let that one breathe for a little bit, because that's the most un-Chiefs-like there's a what do you call it, an essay in that one. What's the word I'm looking for? Oral history in that one alone. You get all the participants together. It's a poor call by Andy Reid. They can kick a field goal at that point. Your offense has been misfiring and just not playing well. Texans seem to have the better of you, while your defense is actually playing really, really well. Manti Te'o was on NFL Game Day earlier saying, I'm sitting on that defense and I'm thinking, Coach, you don't trust me.
Yeah, it's just it's unusual as well. But when we see Andy Reid trying to defend his decision of play calling as well as he was in the press conference afterwards, and he was like, "Look, we're usually doing really well and converting on fourth downs. They haven't actually really. I mean, on third downs this year as well, they're only converting with 35%, which I think is Colin Cowher was saying that's Jets and Titans level of being able to convert on these plays. And it was just things that just don't normally happen like happened last night. Like, of course, the doink, the missed kick. There was an underthrown pass in the early third quarter to Hollywood Brown, where if that was last year, that ball was thrown over the head of Hollywood Brown. He had it in his hands, and it was a touchdown. He had to sort of scram back and get it. Still a nice chunk play, but, it goes from being a score to just being a long play. There's another one where it's a shot to Thornton, but it was punched out by Kamari Lassiter, who also got an interception later on in the game. Shout out to him. What a great game by him on Houston defense. So many things happening which just aren't Chiefs-like. And I think the genesis of it is that ever since they were completely annihilated by the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl last year, I think the fear factor has come out of the jersey. I was talking to Pat Spillane a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the great Kerry team of the 70s and 80s. Let's not remind.
Such a long time ago since they were great. God, thanks for reminding us.
Well, quite a long time ago. But he was saying that whenever the Kerry team played against a lot of Ulster teams in particular, he was saying that the teams actually respected the Kerry jersey and the Kerry players too much in the first half. That they waited until too late in the game to realize that actually they're good enough to beat them. I felt like there's a lot of this during the time of the Chiefs dynasty, and this happens with a lot of.
It's Brian, like Dublin won 6 All-Irelands in a row within living memory. Certainly within your living memory, Shane. In fact, in the last 10 years, but you go back to Kerry for your definition of greatness. Well, you've repaid me for snubbing the Patriots now.
That's exactly what it is, Conor. Yeah, you gave him all the momentum to go and do that. Motivation.
Well, I was just saying this to point that maybe Spillane's after getting into my head again. That's just he's completely planted the seed there. The point I was trying to say is,
what about the Pats Spillane? Isn't there a Spillane? Or do you call him Spillane, but it's really Spillane. There's a Spillane playing for the Pats, isn't there?
There is, yeah. Christian Spillane, who knocked the 7 shades out of Jackson Dart last week. But just the point I was trying to make is that once you lose respect for the jersey and the fear factor from the jersey, we saw this from Manchester United at a certain point the last decade as well, then you have confidence that your defense can get third down conversion. You have confidence that CJ Stroud, even though he was under pressure a lot last night, was able to make all these passes. Psychologically, that's such a huge, huge shift from what everybody else that was faced the Chiefs so far this year has had to come up against. And look, as we can clutch the straws and say that the Chiefs might still make the playoffs, and maybe we might even hope that be the case, considering that it doesn't look like Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow is going to be there either. But the crack in this dynasty is quite something.
Brian, we've seen the Texans get to the playoffs the last couple of years and win playoff games, but not quite have enough to advance to where they really want to be. You're looking at this defense and you're thinking, I mean, I don't know if I'm overstating the case here, but from what I've seen, this is the best defense since the Legion of Boom. Like they are just awesome in every single position at every single level. It's not just the defensive front, it's not just the linebackers, it's not just the secondary. It's the combination, it's the hustle that they play with, it's the culture that they have. They feel like they can just take care of any offense in the league, and their offense just needs to be good enough. Right now, it's looking like a little bit more than good enough. They're building a bit of momentum. Not a team you want to play down the stretch.
Yeah, I think there's a maturity with this defense that's probably a year later than what we expected, Conor. If you recall last off-season when we were doing our preseason predictions, I know Kieran Boyle was very high on them, even going to the Super Bowl for that particular point. Real strong defense can really come on from what they saw the previous year. And CJ Stroud would develop into another year. So he was littered with injuries last year. He has been this year as well to a certain extent with the concussion, but you are seeing that kind of model now starting to evolve. You saw last night in particular, and it didn't come as a surprise despite the Chiefs' ill form that they won last night, because if you look at the record over the last 3 to 4 times in which they've gone in there, they played really strong. They come out the wrong side of them, some really tight games. Remember, it was overshadowed last year by the serious injury to the wide receiver. Don't think he's ever really recovered from that. But to your point, yes, it's coming together. They've knocked off the Bills, they've knocked off the Chiefs, and whenever we think of the Chiefs, as you allude to there, going into Arrowhead is still a very difficult environment for any team, any player. And right now, can you bet against them going and winning this division? I know the Jags are hot as well, but they're on such a winning streak. They've got some tough games going down the stretch, but right now it's starting to come together for D'Amico Ryans. Like, this is exactly how he would have pictured it, isn't it? Like, Conor, this team will defense first, complementary offense. Nico Collins, the rookie the rookie running back is starting to come to the fold as well now. He's really starting to come on. So they've got a nice tight end there in Dalton Schultz. They've got a nice offense, but they're never going to go out and put 30, 40 points on teams. It's going to be these type of games continuously over the course of the season into the playoffs, tight games, coming out the right side of these 2017 games. I agree with what you said about the Chiefs. The game was there to be won for the Chiefs last night defensively, but they kind of got away from what works. They got away with what was working when they were struggling a couple of years ago and made the Super Bowl, which is lean on Spagnuolo to get a job done. But for the Texans right now, even if the end was a wild card, I wouldn't fancy them in the playoffs.
This AFC South, Shane, as we were talking about last week, has gone from being one of the divisions that you could peacefully ignore to just red hot. Texans on the charge, as we say. Jags after winning their fourth straight. I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to conclude that the Colts are cooked. I don't think there's going to be too much controversy over that. There's probably not too much doubt that the Jags are cooking either. In a weird way, and you'd never wish this on anyone, it's a terrible injury for Daniel Jones to do his Achilles in the game, and that really, unfortunately, sticks the fork in the Colts season. It's very hard to see them doing anything from this point on in. But in a weird way, it kind of gives them an excuse for a season that was already unraveling. They were the best team in the NFL over 8 games and really don't seem to have been able to shoot straight since.
Yeah, I think from the Colts point of view, what's going to be really disappointing for them is they're coming in with a lot of quarterback problems already. Riley Leonard looked like he mightn't even be available this week. He's carrying a knee injury. If ever a team needed a Tommy DeVito to come in and back up Daniel Jones, it's Indianapolis right now. But I think the bigger thing that's going to happen here is how much draft capital they gave up in that Sauce Gardner trade. When it was quite clear they were going all in the lead up to that game in Germany after, like that defeat in Pittsburgh. Like I was watching it up in the tap house and I was there thinking, I was like, this seems like just like a bad game from a good team that'll be able to recover from this. They just couldn't get the run game going at all. And that's just not how anything has worked out. I mean, can you really read into much of the good performance in Germany against Atlanta? They had to go to overtime in a game when they were clearly the better team, but Jonathan Taylor had to run for over 220 yards. I mean, teams are starting to learn. If you can just get that extra 5% on shutting down the run game, but the plan B for the Colts just doesn't really work. So, yeah, it's very, very difficult to look ahead for them. And look, in a division where the Jags have not an easy enough run day to go to Denver, so that looks like that they're going to be moving ahead. And the Texans, just to round off on a point from earlier, their schedule is at home to the Cards, at home to the Raiders, away to the Chargers, and at home to the Colts, who I think could very easily lose every game from here to the rest of the season. It looks like as a division which looked sewn up for Indianapolis, 4 or 5 weeks ago, is going to be a shootout between two teams that isn't them.
And it's funny that you say that now. When we talked about the Texans not being a team you want to face down the stretch, we'll get to the Bengals shortly, who, despite their loss over the weekend, another team you now don't want to face down the stretch. The Colts you would have been wincing at earlier on the season. Now you're like, great, I'm glad they're on my schedule. You just never know. This is why you shouldn't be putting the W and L's on the chart before the games are played. Brian, from the Jags' perspective, that's 4 wins in a row now. I think 5 of the last 6. This tension, it appears, in that locker room, or that at least there was. People weren't sure that Trevor Lawrence is actually Liam Cohen's guy or not. Brian Thomas Jr., people wondering why he's not being used to the extent that he was. There was talk of him being traded before the trade deadline, which obviously didn't happen. But whatever tension there may be, Liam Cohen knows how to scheme good offense. The defense has been improving steadily over the course of the season after a hot start where they tailed off a little bit. And the Jags very much are cooking.
Yeah, I suppose yesterday, the nature of the game yesterday is probably very different. If the injury doesn't happen to Daniel Jones, I still think they would have came out the right side if their offense looked really, really on top of their game early on, despite the poor weather. I think it's more relevant to previous games, Conor. You go into Arizona, despite their struggles, you win a tight game in overtime, you win a tight game in Vegas in overtime, and whilst they're not marquee games in the season, and they're certainly games you should be winning, the camaraderie you get and the togetherness, and from the Bears, like with all due respect to last night's performance in terms of losing that game, the Bears have won so many games down the stretch, late on, that bodes well for a season, and starting to bode well for this Jags team, because despite the kind of scrutiny, as you touched on there, between Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. and other players questioning whether Lawrence is the future, here we are now in a situation where they're, if you're not talking about the Texans, the hottest team in the division, it certainly is the Jags, and they're underdogs going into that game last night, Conor. They were 2.5-point underdogs against the Colts team. It's strange. They've got some. They got to go to Denver as well. We keep talking about this Broncos team. Are they the number one seed? But they've got some huge games, and they got the Jags as well to come. Like, that's going to be a stellar game for the Jags. Can they get over the line, that type of game? But right now, I picked them at the start of the season. Conor, I'm still confident. I think they're a sneaky team going into the playoffs that could do damage.
Shane, the Bengals, we saw them play in Orchard Park in a legendary playoff game when they made their Super Bowl run some years ago. And there's that iconic clip of Joe Burrow flicking the ball and then turning around in the warm-up and it just dropping perfectly into the receiver's hands. And that Joe Burrow showed up for the early part of the game against the Bills. This was just if you wanted the iconic December football game, snow in Orchard Park, two absolute star quarterbacks playing, for the most part, to their absolute best. Like, it's hard to believe these teams managed to put up over 70 points in those conditions. It was just a filthy day to be playing, and yet we saw some of the most outrageous skill plays, both from the quarterbacks and from the receivers, like an absolute circus catch from T. Higgins to get the Bengals back in it at the end. It was the Bills' defense that managed to perform the magic just at the right time, though, to get them over the line. But what a game.
Oh, it was an amazing game. And if you take out those two plays from Joe Burrow, you would say this is almost like the perfect quarterback matchup you could have in December. And just to your point, Conor, like I've often said here that, I've questioned whether Joe Burrow should have came back for Cincinnati. I know obviously footballers want to play football, and that's fair enough. I've often said that the weakness for Cincinnati over the course of the season has not been a quarterback; it's been everywhere else. But holy Jesus, when Joe Burrow is back under center, you look at the accuracy, you look at the energy from the rest of the players, you look at how attentive the defense is. You look at how
I used to wonder why people made a difference or distinction between ball placement and accuracy until you see somebody like Joe Burrow playing. You're like, wow, every time a receiver catches the ball, they're turned in the right direction, they're faced away from the defender, they're where they need to be to make a play after they get the ball. Nobody has to check back to get a Burrow pass. It leads you on to where you need to go as a receiver. He's just something special.
Yeah, and it comes to a point as well where there's quarterbacks who have to put in effort to make sure that they're cohesive with their receivers, that everything is sort of works right in the choreography of running a play. Joe Burrow makes it look like it's the easiest thing in the world. So it's an amazing thing to see. And then obviously on the flip side, Josh Allen as well is no slouch, and they're very much on the tear as well. I just it's just interesting though to see this, like the difference in efficiency from Cincinnati in this game. They're 10 of 12 on third down. They never had to go for it on fourth down. They were able to keep things rushing, and it's such a frustrating thing from their point of view that the two interceptions back to back at a key point of the fourth quarter when they were so far up ended up being their undoing. But I think this is also a nice mental boost for the Bills, because if they ended up coming away from that one, it meant that even if they it would have been very going into playing against the Patriots really, really behind the eight ball in terms of their own division, they would have dropped another one in a place where they didn't really need to, and it would have been question marks over their ability to be offensively solid, because in the earlier parts of the game, let's not forget that the Bills defense made the plays in the end. The Bills were able to score consistently over there, but there was a couple of times with the run game, they played like they were playing in the snow, in the way that the Bengals never played like they were playing in the snow. They always looked like they were playing in sunshine. So look, fantastically entertaining game as we can always expect between these two, but I think I still just look at those interceptions, especially the second one, which led to Buffalo getting a touchdown after they were 29 yards away. Is a really, really frustrating one.
While we're on that second INT, Brian, that brings up one of your favorite points in Coach's Corner. Zach Taylor, what are you doing?
Oh, absolutely. What are you doing? Like, people are suggesting he's on the hot seat. I feel he should be on the hot seat for some of his play calling decisions. Joe Burrow is a fantastic quarterback. there's many a quarterback in the league who, no matter what the circumstances are, in that moment, you need to give him a little bit of a breather. He chose the interception. He comes back in. His first immediate play is the next interception. Like, the nature of that interception and the pick six was weird. I said it to Shane last night in the instant reaction. I didn't know whether he was throwing it, whether he should have handed it off, whether it was unusual. And for him to come in, it just felt like he had his mind on that particular play. And in that situation, you need your head coach not to put his arm around him, but call some plays that allow him to alleviate the pressure in the ears. A couple of run plays, get the drive going again, and then let him go and do the dirty work in terms of getting down the field again and finding Higgins and Chase. I just felt in that moment, the game got completely away from him where it didn't have to be, because I thought the head coach could have done a little bit better in that situation.
One of the things I particularly enjoy about the matchup between these two teams, Brian, it was very much in evidence last night, is Burrow and Allen are brilliant quarterbacks, but they're brilliant in very different ways. It's the contrasting styles. Burrow, just a laser accurate, preternaturally gifted pocket passer. Allen, the playmaker, who is just elite with his legs. I mean, that rushing touchdown he got where he just steps up in the pocket. There's two pass rushes coming from him. Bang, he goes between the gap and just takes off. And I don't want to overemphasize what he can do with his legs, because there was the touchdown throw to Shakir where he fits the ball between two Bengals helmets. Like, there's no gap there. The players just turn and he lasers the ball through and hits the receiver when it just wasn't there. It's not so much a tight window throw, it's a non-existent throw. It's non-existent windows. Let's just put it through a fucking wall.
Yeah, so you're talking about Joey Cohen, and then you're talking about your quarterback that plays with his hair on fire. That's what it felt like last night. Josh Allen, you know, we see two different sides of Josh Allen. I think we've seen a more mature Josh Allen over the last two or 3 years, where he kind of is composed in certain big moments. But last night it felt like this game's getting away from his guys. We got to get that Josh Allen again with the cape on, the hair on fire. 51-yard, was a 51-yard rushing touchdown. Conor, I think his over-under with Quinbet was 13.5 yards to be rushing. I mean, he nearly had that done in the first half, because I think he acknowledged that our defense isn't slowing this Bengals offense down today. We're going to have to put it on ourselves offensively, which hasn't been the case in some games this season. It's kind of been the different story where the defense has come up big, and it did come up big to a certain part. But yeah, Josh Allen last night was Josh Allen, which we were seeing a couple of years ago, where he's running around, and that concerns you as well. Like, can you continue with that throughout the course of the season? Does that get you all the way to the Super Bowl? Because we have seen in the past, eventually you run out of steam in that type of situation.
But what I do love about this time of year with Allen is he's gotten better at deciding, and I'm going to drop a Flight of the Conchords reference in here. It might be over the heads, but he knows when it's business time. It's business. It's business time. And he just puts on that cape.
The karaoke machine is out, Shane. Yeah, well, this is it. Like, he acknowledges in situations where he's the leader of this team. Whether people believe it or not, he is the leader of his team, and he has, in some instances, he has to find a way to get them over the line. That's what it felt like last night. Earlier on, you're watching it, it's in a snowstorm. The Bengals are moving the ball continuously. You're thinking, can the Bills' offense continue to deliver them? They found a way in the end, but it's only set up for a huge game on this weekend, Conor. Can't wait for that one.
Shane, back to cooking for the Vikings Commanders game. JJ McCarthy is cooking. I'm like Ron Burgundy reading the auto cue here with the question mark at the end.
I don't know. Is it cooking, or was he given a nice piece of microwavable meals for him to?
Has this guy thrown for more than 200 yards in a game yet?
Can't believe this game is on the sheet. Sorry, guys.
No, but we have, but like I actually cannot believe this, because I think we have to, like, they go from the offense. I know JJ McCarthy was a play last week, but the offense giving absolutely nothing to scoring 31 to zip. The Commanders, I think, have checked out. They've already booked their tickets to go watch Ireland versus Mexico in Mexico City in June. They're heading to Cancun. They're going to they're going to Merida. They're doing the whole tour of Mexico already.
I think to be watching Ireland.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. We're manifesting, Brian. We're manifesting. But the thing about the Vikings scores, they were 14-0 up early in the second quarter by the time Jane Daniels goes out hurt. They were 5-5 on third down. But basically what it was is the design plays that you practiced all week were executed really, really well by the whole team. And the Vikings defense were awake. They made sure that they were able to get turnovers at key moments in the second half. So I think just on the JJ McCarthy point, you want the pass. When for some reason, whenever he feels confident, he can rip a really, really fast, direct fastball pass, and he did it really well yesterday. But I just wonder I just wonder whether this is more of a Kevin O'Connell creation, that everything, the first 10 plays which you rehearse all week, just worked really well for everybody involved in terms of like the little pitching and plays. They were really creative. They kind of had to be. But I had to put it on here just as a quick sort of ending point before we go on and talk about the game of the week, because it's remarkable.
It's very early to be saying this, and we still haven't seen an awful lot of him. But like a lot of people have serious concerns with JJ McCarthy. Like he's starting to look more and more like the Moneyball archetype, a player who looks the part, who, as you say, can throw one of those fastballs every now and again that just makes you think, oh, this is the guy, and you're ignoring the 90% of his game that's just, yeah. I don't know, Jim.
I don't know, Jim. There we go.
Jaden Daniels, Brian.
Conor, can I make Conor, a quick point? Sorry. Jaden down the same draft as JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy goes, 11 to the Vikings, and Daniels goes 2. But it was really interesting at the time when we were doing our live piece in Cork, which I always remember Shane's great quote, where I know nothing. But
I love that that's what you remember. You remember that I said I know nothing. Nothing else. Nothing else.
I think it was in a surprise to nobody, I know nothing.
4-hour live broadcast.
Yeah, and a surprise. Well, that was the lot of Falcons that made me feel that way, and they still make me feel that way. It's amazing.
What was striking at the time was there was teams really desperate for quarterbacks in the top 10, and JJ McCarthy fell out of the top 10, and the Falcons took Penix 8 when people didn't think he was even close to that piece. And yet they over McCarthy, which for me was an interesting. Kind of sold the story of not many people were all in on JJ McCarthy, maybe with the exception of the Vikings. Sorry, Shane.
I was going to say, we were all expecting Penix to go in the second round. Remember that? Hence why I said I know nothing. Yeah. So like, just to your point, though, the fact that he's going to skip the queue in that point, I think maybe is going back. But I mean, was John Harbaugh, his college coach, even all in on JJ McCarthy when he was making him hand the ball off and run when they actually needed to win? He was all in on somebody else drafting him. Let's be fair about this. He was talking the talk, but the Chargers were never going near him. Not that he needed.
He was doing a solid for his mate, as they say.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, Brian. I was just going to say, from a Dan Quinn perspective, we talked about him. Dan Quinn held his hands up on this one, saying that Jaden Daniels shouldn't have been in that game when he got injured. The Commanders were being blown out and they should have pulled him for the backup at that point. But they're putting him at risk again. I mean, he came down heavily on the elbow at one point when he was sacked and had to go into the injury tent. And you're going, like, this season is cooked. Yeah, literally, the Commanders are done. Why put your prize asset at risk? It just seems to me to be crazy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Conor. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That game on the Sunday Night Football against the Seahawks, when, as you said, he was late fourth quarter and he gets the injury, and it was like there was nothing in the game. They'd been blown out. They'd been blown out yesterday. In fairness, he's come out today at his press conference and said, I could have put him back in yesterday. We got the all clear to put him back in, but I felt it wasn't appropriate because of the nature of the game. I've named my mistake from the last time. We're getting absolutely blown out again. I'm not going to put him in. They're playing the Giants this weekend, and absolutely nothing came for both sides. So it'd be interesting to see if they do put him in. Zach Ertz is also gone for season. They confirmed that's an ACL tear as well. So they've had a really difficult Sunday, but it doesn't make any sense. Because Mariota played reasonably quite well last weekend in Sunday Night Football against the Broncos. It's not like they have got off the scale where they haven't had a quarterback that can come in and actually be really, really not necessarily.
It's not like Max Brosmer is the next guy up. Oh my God, the Ali Daya of the NFL.
Yeah, I'm still remembering Mike Glennon a couple of years ago playing for the Giants quarterback. Conor,
I still remember him playing for the Bears after he'd already been found out, and they still thought that he was working.
And Jake Fromm came in for Mike Glennon. So look, there is teams that cannot move the ball whatsoever when they go to a second or third string quarterback. In fairness to Mariota, he'll give you a productive performance. He did last weekend, got the game into overtime. And they're going to probably have to bring him in next weekend because there's no point playing Jaden Daniels. He clearly isn't ready to be playing again at the level. And it's kind of evident in the performance which we saw yesterday.
Things got hot in the frozen tundra of Lambeau over the weekend. We're going there next.